I'm Scott Weltman. I'm excited that Weltman is celebrating its 95th anniversary this year. I'm pleased to be here with our group of current and former managing partners, my father, Bob Weltman, Chuck Pona, and Alan Weinberg. I thought it'd be great if everybody heard from our managing partners a little bit about their tenure with the firm. Dad, you've been here the longest. What are some of your oldest memories of the firm as it was, in its infancy and growing?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. I find it interesting that the word managing partner is used because I've often been described as the boss. So when I started here, I worked for my father, Maury Weltman, Scott's grandfather, and Ted Spilka. The firm at that time was called Gardner, Spilka, and Weltman. Gardner had predeceased my starting with the firm. I started with the firm September of 1962, my first day of law school. And I worked for my father and I worked for Ted Spilka, and there was another attorney. And eventually Mr. Spilka passed on and my father passed on, and I ran the firm as the boss. So there was no HR department, there was no marketing department. I was it. And it was later, after we hired Mr. Weinberg and Mr. Reed, that we began to put a structure in place that now results in what's here. So my earliest memory of the firm is the horse and buggy stage. We were back in the beginning, we broke turf, and we built what we have, and as a result, we have a very, very successful firm with the people that have followed me, including Mr. Weinberg, Mr. Reed, and of course Scott, and my son Scott, and Chuck Pona.
So in the early days, there was no such thing as a computer. What do you remember about the beginning of the computerization era?
Back then, before computer, we had collection cards. Before collection cards, we had envelopes or folders. And if we had a debtor account, we would have it in a folder in alphabetical order. And the advent of the collection card came from an attorney that I hired who worked for a finance company that I also worked for prior to going to law school. And we created the collection card with tabbies on it. And so if somebody called on the phone and said, "My name is Harry Jones, I'm calling about my account," we'd have to run to an index card to get Harry Jones' account number. And then on the collection card would be a tab that would match the last two numbers of the debtor's account. And it would be behind a date so that we know that on March 12th, we'd be working the collection card. And so eventually, when the computer came on board, which was quite an experience, we converted everything that was on the collection card to the computer. And I was sold on the idea that if Harry Jones called, you don't have to run to an index card to get a number to look for a card that may or may not be where it's supposed to be, not on someone's death. And so we would type in Harry Jones and bingo, it would pop up. So after I was convinced that that's a better way to go, I said, bring it on. And I still remember to this day, it was a Saturday when they showed up with the computer, IBM mainframe. And the guy wheeled it off the elevator and he said, "Where's your air conditioned room?" I said, "What do you mean air conditioned room?" And he said, "Yeah, we need an air conditioned room." I said, "Isn't this like a typewriter? You plug it in the wall and it goes on automatically." And he said, "No, you need an air conditioned room." So he said, "Joe, take the computer back until they build the air conditioning room." And the rest is history.
So Alan, you actually were the first titled managing partner of the law firm. And I'm curious what you remember about the transition to the job, and then what you put in place to help the firm basically have explosive growth.
When I was a young associate with the firm, there were like 20 people at the firm. We had 4 attorneys, we had 5 or 6 debt collectors and staff supporting us. And we were trying to grow because we were getting more business and the volume was increasing. It was pre-computer, and we were hiring attorneys, and Bob, as the boss, was doing all the hiring and what have you. And every attorney he hired lasted about 2 months and quit. And finally, I was just fed up because I was getting all the files to work when they left, and I was overwhelmed. And I was the young kid. I was all of 25 years old, and down in Bob's office, because he was the senior guy, he was all of like 33. And I went down and I said, when I was in the Army, we had an expression, permission to speak freely. He goes, yeah, what's on your mind? I said, you're hiring the wrong people. I said, we're not doing federal court work, we're not doing major litigation, we're doing collection work, we're sending people to court with 20 default files. You need to find people that are happy to be an attorney, first generation attorney in their family, not people that are looking at their father working at the major law firms and seeing them go to federal court. We need people that worked hard in school, put themselves through school, have a great work ethic. That's what you need to be looking at. He says, I like that, you're in charge of hiring. It was a Thursday afternoon. That Sunday I was playing softball and one of the guys on the team came up to me and said, hey, is your firm hiring? You have a friend looking for a job. I said, have him send me his resume. I get the resume. Here's a guy that worked every summer while I was in high school. His dad was a tailor. He worked in law school driving a forklift on the loading dock at Sears at night. I go, this is my guy. He came up, I interviewed him. I said, Bob, I want to hire this guy. Bob says, not until I meet him. He comes back, drives up again from Columbus to meet Bob. The next day we hired Al Reese. And we stuck to that blueprint pretty much throughout our career, hiring people that have a great work ethic. And it's, allowed us at one point we were 1,300 people. And I assume that someday we're going to be back here because we stick to that plan.
So when you became managing partner, you were able to have a little more influence on the overall direction and operation of the firm. What do you remember most about that time when you were actually the named managing shareholder?
I think that what I remember most is that the firm was growing and we had, as Bob said earlier, we had HR departments, and we had marketing department, we had IT people, we had accounting, and managing the firm, it wasn't just a bunch of attorneys anymore, it was a corporation. And I got to be managing partner because Bob just said, too many problems to deal with, Alan, you take over. So I took over, and up until then, one of the things I personally had been doing was I was kind of the compliance guy. I made sure we comply with all the various statutes and requirements and what have you. And it was really getting to be a full-time job. And I said, we need a compliance department. Being able to be ahead of the curve in terms of compliance, satisfying the clients because they push all of their requirements to us that we have to adhere to. And then, in more recent times, just everything documented, everything laid out and in writing has really helped us being able to sell ourselves to clients, to show them what we do, how we do it. It's helped us, prove to various agencies that inspect us that we, are on the ball and we're doing everything properly. So I'd say creating the compliance department was probably one of the most impactful things that I did as managing partner.
I'd like to add one thing that I recall. I ruled the organization under a very strict dictatorship. And what I said was it. And when I suddenly decided in 1995 that I wanted to make no more personnel decisions, I went to Mr. Weinberger and I said, you're managing partner from this point forward, and you take over all the duties. So I still remember vividly that Alan would come to me and say, do you mind if I take next Thursday afternoon up? And I said, Alan, you're the boss. You tell me when to take up. And it took Alan several months in order to grow in that position where he really believed that he was now the managing partner running the firm.
So Alan, your reference to compliance is a really good segue to when I was managing shareholder, and I held that position for 8 years, and there was a lot of transformation in the firm during that period of time. We changed a lot of different locations. You may recall that probably when you became managing shareholder, we had 3 offices, and we ultimately were up to, I believe, 8 locations at one point, all mostly under your being managing shareholder. The compliance segue was, of course, we entered into the post-Great Recession period and an area of significant increased regulation and compliance. We had the CFPB investigate us. They believed that we had broken some laws. We strongly disagree with that. They took us to court and we prevailed. That was a seminal moment in the firm, something that I was very proud of during my tenure at the firm. I think we proved to our clients, we proved to the legal community and to the government that we do things by the book, or we do things legally. We're aggressive for our clients, and we have tremendous client satisfaction. So that's something I'm quite proud of during my tenure. After 8 years, I wanted to get back to the practice of law, and so Chuck Pona took over. He's our current managing partner. Chuck, you've been managing partner now for over 4 years. I'd love your thoughts on what you've seen happen to the firm during those periods and what you see going forward.
So let me take you back to 1989. When I joined the firm, I was practicing with a small commercial collection firm in Cleveland, and a Weltman associate, Bill Coley, called me. He and I were law school classmates. He said, "How would you like to interview with Weltman?" Well, I can't express the excitement I felt because Weltman was the Cadillac of the industry. And I said, absolutely. Interviewed with Alan Weinberg. I must have convinced him I was okay because he hired me. And now let me fast forward to about 5 years ago when I was elected by my partners to be managing partner. I felt that same level of excitement. Here's an opportunity to lead the most prestigious firm in the industry. And along with that excitement, I remember feeling a moral obligation, a fiduciary responsibility to continue to keep our firm at that prestigious level and that highly respected level. I thought a lot about the people that preceded us, the partners, the associates, the support staff, and I felt it's my responsibility to continue this, make us even better in the industry, and that's been my focus.
So, and the focus has been tremendous. The firm is doing great. We've got a great team. We've got a great group of clients. Any thoughts on what you see in the future in the industry and for the firm?
So about a year ago, the partners discussed maybe it's time we do another strategic planning initiative. So this time around, I said, let's go out and hire professionals to help facilitate that exercise. So we went out and we hired a company by the name of Law Vision. And one of the first things that Law Vision insisted on, they wanted to interview a group of our clients, smaller clients, mid-sized, large clients. And in the responses, we saw some common themes. And one of the themes was, we want Weltman to grow with us. And the partners took that to heart, and we said, it's time that we grow our footprint. At the time, we had a 7-state footprint. So I'm happy to report that effective March of this year, we acquired a firm out of Florida, Hodges of Brutus and Fuller. I have been working with that firm for 20 plus years. We would forward work to them in Florida, highly respected in the industry, well-versed in Florida law. So as of March 1, we acquired them. They're part of the Weltman firm now. And going forward, Scott, I believe that's going to be a focus of our partnership. You know, look at opportunities to grow this firm even larger, a larger footprint to service our clients.
Thank you very much. So just a few closing thoughts. I'm here with our group of managing partners, and I've never believed that the firm is just about us. We couldn't be here today without any of our former or current employees and clients. Probably most importantly, clients. We're very appreciative. I know I speak for my father and for Chuck and for Alan. We're so appreciative of the trust that our clients have put in us, and hopefully we've repaid that to them now and into the future. Thank you to everybody, and again, let's all join in celebrating our 95 years together.
Thank you. Cheers to 95 years.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.